Welcome back to Morgan You Asked For podcast. August 7th, about 9 o'clock. We're back together. Last week, I was off and about doing things, and Carol with some buddies playing golf, as Trevor put it in his go out and living life before back to work this coming week.
Yeah, were you up there with Tassel, getting a couple rounds in before it's back to school time?
Yeah, it was Zach, Muggsy, and one of Tassel's friends, and then Tassel. So yeah, it was a good day. A lot of golf. We kind of just do a one day thing now. We played all day, so we played a lot of golf. But no, it's always fun going up there and just getting away for a day. So.
Oh, that's good. Like I said, you probably got about 2 weeks left now at this point before school really gets started. And
1 week
for this 1 week, and then you were at Hinterland, so I wanted to hear about how that went for you compared to last year and all the pros and cons compared to last year.
So it was hot. Last year it rained, so it was a muddy mess. There was no mud to be had except for around the water, where there was water to fill up your bottles of water and everything. But it was hot, and it was very hot. And people, there were a lot of people that had that discussion. What was better last year? The weather, obviously Saturday last year was awesome. The weather was really good for Zach Bryan. But then right after, you could see this. I think the storm was coming during Zach Bryan. If I remember right, I think we could see lightning and stuff in the background and everything. So, and there's pros and cons to both. Obviously, there's no mud, but yet you weren't out there frying either. Friday, I would almost say there was more people this year than last year, which is hard to believe. But what I've read this week is there were 20,000 people there Friday for Hosier. He was good. We got there. We take a camper. So, again, kind of like the George Strait, where people were getting beer and having a lot of complaints and stuff, and then getting out and getting in. We had our camper up there. Took the camper to this. So getting in and out was a pain, but not as bad because we had a camper. So like last year, we'd go in, put stuff down. That's the greatest thing about Hinterland. You go put stuff down and people don't mess with it. You can walk around, do whatever. We go back to the camper and just your stuff's still there. We went to the other side this year. Last year we were on the east side. We went over to the west side, closer to the tree, the Hinter tree. For Friday, we were down front. We didn't get there as early as we'd like to. Just by the time everything got around and everything set up. And then Saturday, went in and dropped stuff off, and then went back out to the camper. It was hot. I mean, there was, obviously we didn't have the group of people like we did last year. So we actually went back. There wasn't, you could have sat outside, but we went back into the camper and actually watched some of the Olympics in between on my phone. And then went back Saturday. But Sunday was the big day. And I did not know what was a big day because I had no idea who this person was until we got there. But Sunday was crazy. So we got up and around, and gates opened at 11. And we're like, I don't think it's going to be, because we had heard it wasn't going to be as big. But then something changed. And Thursday or Friday in Chicago, which is where you were, we'll get to that in a minute. This Chapel Roan, have you heard of her, Trev?
Little, but I don't know much, to be honest.
She played Thursday, Friday, somewhere at Lollapalooza, and absolutely stole the show. And this person, I don't know who this is until Sunday. I have no idea what's going on. And so Sunday, we're like, the line to get in, we think, I mean, just looking at it is like 3 hours long. So, and the other thing, they moved us. So where we were over by Dollar General last year and by the showers, we were on the other side of the road, and we were much closer to the main entrance. Well, the problem with that is Friday night getting out of the concert, they only let you cross the road in one spot. So you couldn't just cross it wherever, which I understand. But that was where the shuttles were, the campers were. A lot more people, I believe, were crossing the road this year than in the past. And they were trying to get cars out before people. So there was a lot of complaining on Friday night on getting out. And I agree. It was not the best thing. And you saw this, really, there's only like 7 spots to get, like 7 rows to get 20,000 people into this place. There's one entrance, except there's a VIP entrance, but out of 20,000 people, 1,000 people have VIP, maybe 2. I have no idea, but not very many. So getting in and out is always going to be a problem, the way they have it designed. But I'm not sitting in a car driving back and forth or waiting for a shuttle. So I didn't have the big complaints about that. Friday, there were several times during the show, it was hot, and you could not bring water in. You could bring an empty water bottle and you could fill it up. But we didn't get there super early. I had a couple beers. We kind of planned, we knew it was hot, so we drank some stuff before there. So maybe planning ahead helps. Getting older helps, where you just don't want to go crazy, I guess. But I didn't think it was that bad. And then Saturday and Sunday, they let you bring water in. So you could bring some water bottles, fill them up. We obviously had ice in our fridge and everything. So filled bottles with ice, froze them, let them thaw. So we never had problems. I think we filled water bottles up one time the whole weekend. Because you bought drinks or we brought enough water. And like I said, Saturday, we went back and forth a couple times to the camper because it was so hot, and some bands we weren't. Saturday was not the big show. Sunday, like I said, 3-hour wait to get in. We didn't stand it. We just said, heck with it. We're just not going to get there as early. A little worried about getting a spot. When we did get in, we got in 1, 2 o'clock maybe, and we made the decision to just stay. Kind of the original idea was to drop stuff off and then come back and forth. But we decided to stay. Right decision. It was crazy because of this Chapel Roan, who is, you need to listen to her music. It's kind of good. It's very feminine power. Everybody wears pink. That's her fan. This crowd went absolutely nuts. And I don't know if you follow Noah Khan on social media and stuff and have seen it, but he was jamming out to her, got a picture with her. Like he wrote, I'm the headliner, but I'm really just here to see Chapel Roan. And she was like third. She was like at 4 o'clock. And then there was Ethel Cain, I believe, and then Mountain Joy, and then Noah Khan. So this was middle of the day, high of the day. The entire crowd knew every word to every song, it seemed like. And we had these young girls in front of us that were absolutely going nuts. It was kind of fun to watch. No idea who this girl was until Sunday at 4 o'clock. All of a sudden, all these people, they're all dressed alike. They got signs, they got flags, and that is what makes Hinterland for me and for others. I had no idea who this person was. She's pretty good. Mountain Joy, very good. I feel really bad for Ethel Cain. She was right after her, and she kind of has maybe a Jewel vibe from the 90s, where she just kind of stands there and sings. It's kind of low key. That's just her. It's the exact opposite of Chapel Roan, who's, almost psycho on the stage and singing and yelling and cheering and just high energy, high. Everybody knows every word. And then Mountain Joy is a little bit more upbeat. And then even like Noah Khan said, Noah Khan's not the most, he's got a couple songs that are kind of upbeat, but a lot of his are, kind of, mental, stability songs and just kind of low key, folky. The most fun part was somebody threw up Zoloft and he signed it for him, and he made a joke, keep going, Noah Khan. I mean, that's kind of funny, but that's just kind of his show. And just, the thing didn't get over till 11:30 on a Sunday night, and it was crazy. But no, I really like Hinterland. Do I know all the groups that go in? Hosier was very good. Vampire Weekend was pretty good. Noah Khan was awesome. But the Chaperone stole the show. I'm going to guess she's one of the headliners next year. That'd be, kind of like last year, you could kind of tell Noah Khan was going to be a headliner soon. And I was surprised at the amount of acts that said they'd been there before. Now, this is only my second time, but I think they do kind of have a little bit of a rotation. And so it was fun. A lot of complaining about in and out and then water and heat and stuff. But if you go get in line at 9:00 and you don't leave that place till almost midnight, maybe you don't get out of there till 1:00 in the morning, that's a long, long day. And it was almost 100 degrees every day. So I understand that. And that's where we had an advantage with the camper there. It costs money. It's expensive, but it's worth every dollar.
And the camper is definitely an advantage. You can come and go as you please. If you get hot, go back to the camper for an hour or two, watch the Olympics, like you said. You also have to have realistic expectations when you go to these festivals. If you're going to be outside, like you said, from 9 to midnight, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be hot. It's August. Just have realistic expectations. But no, that's one of the best things about just going to any festival. When you have a ton of these bands, you don't know who they are. As you said, Lollapalooza was going on there in Chicago. We drove by it, people everywhere. And then that, as you said too, you could go in early there at Hinterland, put down your blankets, your towels, or whatever you take in, and nobody messes with it. And that's pretty rare nowadays. That's one of those few things that kind of keeps your faith in humanity in a way, where you can go in, drop stuff off, leave for 5 or 6 hours, come back, and it's still there. There's not many events or anything like that where you can do stuff like that and know that people aren't going to steal it or mess with it.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Steck was there, with his group there. We stopped on Sunday. Their camper wasn't very far from ours. We stopped there a few times and everything, but Sunday we were walking by and one of their people had gotten in line at 8:00 in the morning. Now the gate didn't open until 11. So he was in line for at least 3 hours. And I don't know where he was after, at 8:00 where he was in line. So at least 3 hours in line, went and got their spot, which I'm guessing was pretty good. He's usually pretty close to the tree. That's where they try to get to. And they're very experienced at that. I would say they've been there almost every year. And he goes, well, I hope all of our stuff's there. I go, well, usually it is. He goes, I agree, but this one's going to be crazy. And I don't know when they went in, but they were hoping a little bit. And you could see some people leaving after Chaperone that were there for her, especially since it was a Sunday. You would almost think that the biggest shows were Saturday, but this year was Zach Bryan. Last year was Saturday, but this year definitely was Sunday was the big show. And I'm guessing when they booked Chaperone, she hadn't got as big as she is now. Because like I said, she was like at 4:00. There was 2 more bands before Noah Khan. When I first was thinking her, I'm like, well, it's going to be her and then Mountain Joy and then Noah Khan, which kind of makes sense. Mountain Joy's a little bit longer. They're a little bit more known. I didn't know much about them until I knew they were Hinterland. They're pretty good. I like them. But the Ethel Kane, I felt really bad for her. Now, her music is not my cup of tea, but that's okay. And, it's amazing. Sam Barber was there Friday night, and then he played at Valor Ballroom after that because the same people own it. And he talks about, he's in the top 25 of country acts right now. Red Clay Strays, top 20 of country acts right now. And what's funny is, like he was talking about, he doesn't even think he's country. And Zach Bryan would be that same kind of boat. He's a country act, but he doesn't think he's country. That's just kind of where they put him. They're more rock and roll or folk or American. I don't know, whatever you want to call Americana, whatever you want to call them.
The Red Clay Strays, speaking of Bel Air Ballroom, I forgot that, but I think did Red Clay Strays, I think Kylie Adams was telling me or someone that they played at Bel Air the night before or the same day even, and then came over.
The same day. So there. Sam Barber, like at 10:30, they both played at like 4 or 5 o'clock. They were kind of that. They probably both could have played later, but I think probably some of the agreement was to play at Bel Air too. So they played at like 4 or 5 o'clock, and then they played at 10:30 at Bel Air, both of them, Friday night, Saturday night, after they played at Hinterland. So yeah, it was, and I've seen them before. We went out to a concert in Omaha last summer, and they were the second of 3 acts that we had saw. So they were pretty good. I like them too.
Definitely jealous. You got to see both of them. Red Clay Strays, that their album they put out a couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it was. That's one of my favorite albums of the year so far.
Yeah, they're good. And it was so hot, and I wonder what he would come out in. So if you don't know who he is, he kind of, if you just had to look at him, he kind of looks like Elvis. That's how he kind of dresses, and his hair is always kind of nice. And he just he's from Mobile, Alabama, so the South. So he's kind of got a little bit of Southern. I'd just say Elvis in the 1950s, kind of before he went into the jumpsuit and everything else like that. That's kind of what he looks like, in my opinion. The lead singer there, but no, they're good. Hinterland's good. Most likely we'll do it again next year. Obviously, I have to look at the lineup a little bit, but it's one of those just always fun to go. Listen to some new music. Sometimes you hit, like, I think this Chapel Roan is going to be a superstar very fast, and it'd be one of those ones to say I saw her before she got huge. It's kind of fun.
That's the best thing about going to some of those big festivals or concerts that are multiple days. You're going to see some people that you don't know about, learn to like them, and you'll see some people too that you get to see them for a much cheaper price, as you're mentioning, because they're probably going to blow up. And a year from now, to get a ticket to go watch them would probably be insane.
So I wondered that. So we paid like $350 a ticket, roughly. For 3 days. You think that's kind of expensive, but to watch 10 bands, or let's just say I watched 6 bands, a little more than that, but watch 10 bands, $350 isn't too bad. And I just wanted to see what this Chapel Roan was, what her tickets were going for. So coming up, she plays in Council Bluffs at West Fair Amphitheater, who I've seen Zach Bryan there, and they don't know what they're in for. Because when I went and watched Zach Bryan at that thing, it was a complete and utter chaos, worse than Hinterland on getting in and out. Think of a county fair. It's like right here in Oskaloosa, Southern Iowa Fair, and all of a sudden you got 20,000 people. And it's kind of like Hinterland, where it's down in a bowl. I went to something there, saw like Papa Roach, and that when I went to college, like rock, alternative, year 2000, 1999. Imagine what everything, 19, 20 years old. Imagine what we were all doing then. But she's there, and tickets are $279 a piece. And that's an outside concert, much like Hinterland. And I'm sure she'll have an opening act or something. But yeah, so like you said, $350. If you wanted to go watch Noah Kahan at Fenway Park, it's probably $200 a ticket. Just things like that. Red Clay Strays are $50 a ticket. in Omaha. They're actually, that concert I went to last year where they were second, they're headlining it this year. And, I'm sure it's part of the golf tournament that's coming up there. Kind of like John Deere Classic where they had Laney Wilson and these golf tournaments are starting to do that where you buy the ticket and then they have a concert like on, Friday, Saturday. And yeah, so can't complain. Realistic expectations and know what you're getting into, I guess. And then I guess being 44 years old, I've lived life and I kind of understand how things work, I guess, better than a 22-year-old that just wants everything to go their way all the time. I understand that's not realistic.
Yeah, Hinterland's a great area to go to. I had a lot of fun last year. Definitely going to be interested to see who they have next year. Going to try to go if I can. We'll see what the schedule works out, but it sounds like plenty of good bands. And this year was just the opposite, which, given the first week of August, it's going to be hot. You just know that going in. We got lucky in a way last year that was cooler, but we had all the mud though.
Right. I just couldn't picture everybody being so mad that it was so hot. It was August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Now, the issue was Monday it was hot, and then Tuesday was a high of 75. And then like today was like 80. It'd been perfect. And like the state fair starts tomorrow and it's going to be 80. And this weekend, my son has baseball this weekend and it's 76, 78, 76. It's absolutely perfect. But I think we did decide I'd almost rather be hot than this mud everywhere.
There's good and bad to it, both. But yeah.
Now the one thing that was way different.
The weather out here is changing the same way as it is there for you guys too. It's going to be high 70s, low 80s here. So that'll be perfect weather for the state fair time.
Oh, absolutely. Now the thing that was different this year, so we were not by the showers. Now there's only 2 of us, and my parents got a different camper than last year too, so it's a little bit bigger and the bathroom's a little bit better. So since there's just 2 of us, there's enough water. We did take showers each day in the camper and everything. But it would have been way more of a pain in the butt to go get a shower at the shower this year compared to last year. Last year we were right there. It was really convenient.
Sure, it was nice. You could walk outside your camper where we were at, and you could throw a tennis ball and hit that shower room or that shower trailer
right.
Which we needed because with all the mud and everything, you for sure had to take at least 1 shower a day, if not 2, with all that mud everywhere.
Absolutely. All right, now how about your weekend in Chicago?
Chicago trip went well. We started out the first day. We did the riverboat architecture tour right downtown.
I've never done
that.
I highly
How
recommend.
cool is that? It's the second time I've done it. It's one of my favorite things about downtown Chicago. It's relaxing. It's a 90-minute boat ride. There's multiple companies that do it. You can see all the different boats passing around when you're riding down the river. So it's relaxing. The top part of the boat has all the chairs and the guide telling you about all the buildings, which is interesting. Down below, you've got an enclosed area with bathrooms, seating with AC. Of course, it wasn't too hot, but in the summertime, it'd be good. And then, of course, they have a full bar where you can get water, pop, mixed drinks, and some snacks. So highly recommend that. After that, we went to the old Stockyards Museum. Wasn't quite what we expected. We were expecting a little bit more, but as I told my dad, sometimes you don't know until you go and see it. But that was on the south side, south of the White Sox Stadium, so in a rough area. The Stockyards back in the day were a really extremely rough part of town and a rough way to make a living. I've actually got a video I need to watch on that. So, and there's a book my dad bought too the next day called The Jungle. Kind of tells the history of the Stockyards. Sounds like a lot of people died back in the day. Maybe even got mixed up in the food processing part of that. So definitely a rough living back then. And then the next day we did the Titanic Museum, which was all right. And then we went to the top of the 360 kind of tilt sky deck building.
Yep.
You get the big view of the lake and everything, and you tilt over downtown and you're facing the streets. I'm not a big heights guy, but that was definitely interesting. And then after that, we kind of did a late lunch. My brother talked my dad into going to an hibachi steakhouse. They're on the lower part of the building, so he had never done that. You go
Oh,
there,
well,
they
he'd
cook
never
all the
done
food in
that. That's
front of
fun.
you. Yeah, it's an experience. If you've never done it, the
Yep.
experience is worth it alone. They chop all the food in front of you. They light a fire. They're tossing the spatulas around and doing all sorts of tricks and stuff. So that was good. I think he enjoyed that for the most part. And then we went down to the
Until he
Griffin
got the bill,
Museum.
probably, right? Your dad
Well,
paid for it?
hey, my brother paid for it. My brother, because
Okay.
normally
So your
that's
dad
food my
didn't.
dad wouldn't eat. So my brother said he would pick up the tab if my dad decided to do it. So we conned him into it in a way.
Yeah.
He got a
'Cause those
free meal
places
out
are
of the
nice, but
deal.
usually they're pretty expensive.
They're expensive. In my opinion, the food's good, but you also get the experience. So if you've
Yep.
never done it, I think it's definitely worth it. And then we ended our trip with the Griffin Museum, taking a tour on a submarine down there. One interesting fact about that is way back in the day, the guys that were on the submarine only got to take 2 pairs of underwear for a 90-day trip. So, and the submarines are much smaller than the movies make them look. So
Oh, yeah.
it was a pretty cool experience. But if anybody listening has any, if you're intimidated by downtown Chicago, obviously the traffic is the traffic. But if you're worried about crime or anything, if you're right down on the river area, you've got nothing to worry about. There's so many rich people that live down there. We were looking up the prices of apartments and condos during the day. You don't have to worry about a single thing right downtown.
Right. I agree. I've been to Memphis a few times for bowl games and stuff, and that's one of the highest crime cities. St. Louis is one of the highest crime cities. I've never really felt unsafe. Chicago, St. Louis, Memphis. I don't know. I don't think about it. I don't worry about it, I guess, that much.
Big cities get a bad rap. There's a lot of people, so a lot of people do get killed, obviously, but that's typically at night in bad areas. During the middle of the day, if you're right in the heart of downtown or in the good areas, if you're
Yeah.
using common sense, you don't have much to worry about.
No, you hang out on Michigan Avenue or by the pier, Navy Pier in Chicago. You're there with thousands of other people doing the same thing you are.
No, that's exactly right. The one thing I did think about, and I forget who it was, but I heard it a couple years ago. Someone was saying it would be tough to be an older person living in Chicago or New York, just getting around. And when I was walking around, I kind of noticed that there's a lot of people about 40 or 50 years old or younger walking around, really good in shape, but you don't see a lot of super old people out walking around. It would just be
No.
tough with the traffic, going and getting groceries or whatever you have to do on your daily living.
I would agree with that. And that's, when you think of downtown living in any city, even Des Moines or like Colorado Springs, there aren't big cities. They're cities, but they're not big cities. The downtown living is definitely catered towards young professionals.
And you could see that walking around. It was mostly young people, but no, if anyone out there has any trepidations or anything about going to Chicago, because you hear about it on the news all the time, don't be scared. Just don't be out wandering around at night on your own, and don't go to the South Side. Other than that,
I've got a pretty dumb story. I went to Chicago to a Cubs Cardinals with a few buddies, kind of for a bachelor party thing, and went to a game. Then, Wrigleyville, all the different bars. Then I think that's the problem is I just don't remember it all. But we woke up on the train at O'Hare because the train stopped at like 4 a.m, and we didn't get off, and that probably was not smart. And I don't even really remember how we got home. I guess we probably got a cab when we got to O'Hare because that's where the train stopped, not where we were supposed to be going.
That's a little bit different story. You may not want to do that.
No, I would not recommend.
O'Hare is actually where we stayed, just because the hotel was so cheap. We had about an hour drive in and out every day. Really, we got pretty lucky with the traffic for the most part.
So did you
drive around
drive or you take
downtown.
the train in?
We drove, and the good thing was you can look up parking garages before you get there and reserve a spot. So you just got to make sure, though, if we drove a full-size pickup, my grandpa's truck, you just got to make sure when you're buying these parking spots to make sure that you have clearance, height clearance, because some of these parking garages are meant for smaller cars. So other than that, though, you can buy parking ahead. Public transportation probably is the way to go, but we drove it. I drove downtown. It's a little bit chaotic, but at this point, I'm kind of used to it. So it worked
I've
out
never
pretty well.
driven, like downtown. Now I usually drive a car to the hotel and then just pay the $50 to $75 a day to park it, and then take the train or do whatever. When I've done in Chicago, Coolio's, I'm like, heck with it. I'm just gonna get a hotel. There's a hotel just like 2 blocks off of Michigan Avenue that we like pretty good, that I've been a few times there with. I haven't been, for not being that far from Chicago. I really have not been there very much. I don't know the city great.
I don't know the city great either, but I definitely, if I was making millions a year, which I'm not, I definitely could live downtown by the river for a couple of years just to experience it all. I would love to do that.
Sure,
Chicago,
you'd buy a place in Trump Tower, wouldn't you?
I don't think I had that kind of money, but if I did, that's the thing though. Chicago, I think, just gets such a bad rap from all the news sites and everything. And then there obviously are a lot of murders and a lot of crime. But like I said, if you go during the day, you don't have much to worry about.
No. All right. What was next on our list here? We kind of rambled on that kind of longer than we planned, but that's okay.
Olympics.
Yep. Got the Olympics on right now. Kid from Kansas City just won the gold medal in the 400, I believe, is what I just saw. I've watched a lot of Olympics. I like the Olympics. I'm not a person that has like TV shows to watch necessarily. So I'd find something on YouTube or go to Netflix or, Amazon Prime or HBO Max or something just to turn on. But I like watching the Olympics, and I haven't been able to do it like today. I wasn't, because I worked for Dad, but like yesterday, it's kind of been nice where I don't necessarily work every day, and the stuff is live at like 1:00 in the afternoon. So I've watched that. And then, so I'm actually seeing it live, and then it's kind of fun to watch it again at night when they present it with Mike Tirico and everything. You kind of see how they pick and choose what to do. But I like track and field. I mean, it is amazing to watch, like Kenny Derrick, who actually ran at Indian Hills. They were in a semifinal for the 200, ran 20 flat, and just coasted at the end. I mean, that's just absolutely insane. The 400-meter hurdles, they're running it in like 45, 46, 47. Girls 400 in 50 flat. I mean, it's like, Noah Lyles won the 100 in 997 or what? Not 997, 97. And the person that got 8th in the 100 in 1988, when Carl Lewis won it, he ran faster than Carl Lewis. So in just shy of 40 years, the guy got 8th, last in the final. Now he still made the final, so he's the 8th fastest person in the world, technically. I mean, kind of. Would have won it less than 40 years ago. That's how much faster we became as humans and training and everything.
We're getting faster, stronger, jumping higher, running quicker. I know I told you a couple weeks ago when we talked, I'm not a super big Olympics guy, but this Olympics I've watched way more. I know on our vacation, Dad would typically go to bed early, but my brother and I would hang out in the hotel room or went out to a couple restaurants, and we actually watched a ton of Olympics every night. And my brother's not a super big sports guy. He likes football and some hockey, but we were watching, obviously, track and field is easy to understand. When there's a race, whoever crosses the line first wins. But we watched some gymnastic stuff that we had no idea what was going on. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat, but it's just interesting. You're rooting for the Americans or you're just kind of drawn in because you don't really know what you're watching, but it still draws you in because you know these are the best athletes in the world. They've been training for years. And I know I text you, this Olympics is kind of nice. It feels like the entire country is really invested right now in the Olympics, which kind of helps block out the political stuff that's going on, which that's coming. That freight
That's
train of
not going to get
storm,
any better.
it's coming right around the corner. But thankfully, we've got football to help combat that. But it's just, I've definitely watched more Olympics now probably than ever, and it's been fun watching it. Some sports I kind of understand, some I have no clue what I'm watching.
Like right now, there's artistic swimming, so they're like doing a dance on top of the water with you watch water polo, team handball, which is cool. I'm surprised America. So on some of the talk radio I listened to, they were talking about team handball. Team handball is an event that the United States has never won a medal in. There's like 5 events that the U.S. has never won a medal. And the best they ever did was in 1912. They got 6th in team handball. There was only 6 teams in the Olympics. So the best we've ever done is last. Now, we've gotten not last since then, but I mean, it's like, and, if you watch that handball, it's kind of like, it's a basketball. I mean, it's just a combination of a bunch of sports that you would almost, the guys don't look super big, super athletic. They are, but they're not, genetic freaks like a basketball player or there's obviously tons of training that goes involved to being a 100-meter sprinter or a 200-meter, but there's a lot of God-given ability there that it doesn't matter how hard I work, how fast I get myself to do. I was never going to run 20 seconds, 200. Didn't matter. And, the other thing is the diving. I think that just absolutely fascinates me, what they do and how they don't make a splash and how the Chinese are just so much better than everybody else. Whatever they're doing, everybody else needs to do the same.
And there's so many events and they're adding more. Diving, definitely. Yeah, the Chinese are doing pretty good on that. Handball, as you mentioned, that would almost seem like something we would excel at.
Right.
We
I
would just
agree.
figure it out. But we haven't yet. I'm sure we will eventually. But yeah, all these different games. I know we've got women's golf starting up here later tonight. If I can't sleep or wake up in the middle of the night, I'm hoping Nelly Korda, she shot even today, which was okay, but
Right.
she's 7 strokes back. So I'm hoping that she can make a little bit of a run. That's my favorite female golfer, Nelly
Right.
Korda is. And there's so many different events. Flag football is going to come to the Olympics. It's just it's been nice actually. I didn't expect to watch this much, but I'm liking it.
And I think there's a few reasons for that. One, the last several Olympics have been Russia and Asia, and the time difference is just so much that it just didn't work. Like you said, this one, the stuff's happening at 1:00 in the afternoon. So a lot of people can, if they know, like when Simone Biles and the girls were doing gymnastics, when they knew that was live, a lot of people can pull it up on their phone and watch the minute or 2 or 5 minutes of things. Or like these guys running, 9.7 seconds or 20 seconds or 445 seconds, whatever. You can kind of watch that. And then you can go home, or if you can't, you can go home and watch it. But it's only 6 or 7 hours. Like when it was in Russia and, Tokyo, it was like right in the middle of the morning or in the middle of the night. I can't remember. And it just, no one could watch it. So now you got people watching it live plus in prime time. And then this Olympics is just so much better, and it's not anybody's fault. But 2021, they didn't allow families. They didn't allow fans. Everything was empty and dead, and there was just no energy to the Olympics. And that was not their fault at all. It was the circumstances of the world at that time. Obviously, it was supposed to happen in 2020, and that's when nothing happened. 2021, a lot of things were back, but it was not full go yet.
Yeah, definitely the 2020, obviously not much was going on. We all know why. 2021, not really having fans, but this Olympics it's been pretty special. This is one I'm going to remember probably for the rest of my life. It's just been great. I mean, I watched so many things this afternoon. I had the men's volleyball game on. They ended up losing, which was disappointing. I think they have a still chance to play for third unless it's already
Yep.
happened. I haven't been keeping track lately.
I don't
but
think. Yeah. Just today they lost to Poland, who's the number one
Yep.
team in the world. So it's nothing to, the big problem was they were way ahead and kind of blew it. They were supposed to lose. So they're going for third. Then the other thing is a lot of these athletes, and you can see that they are gearing up for 4 years from now when it is in the United States. And, Katie Ledecky has said she's going to try to do it. Simone Biles, I'm assuming she's going to retire, but she hasn't said that yet. She was in the Olympics in Tokyo, but then she had her mental issues and everything. So she lost an Olympics essentially in the middle. And as long as, always an injury could happen. But if they can stay healthy and she wants to do it, I don't know if anybody can, stop her because she's so much better than everybody else. Now, I don't think she had the best entire Olympics that she could have. She didn't do very good on the balance beam in the individual. She fell. So there is some things there that she could do better. Now, she's the greatest gymnast ever in most Olympics. And, used to, 20 years ago, every, gymnast was like 16 years old. Now, none of them are 16. I don't know if the rules changed or what, but they're all 20, 21. Most of them have been to college. Like when Shawn Johnson and them, they were 16, 17 years old. So I don't know if things have changed or just, but as we talked, the training and everything has gotten better. So these girls are getting better the older they get instead of peaking so soon.
Definitely. When the Olympics comes to America, it's going to be a big deal. Obviously, Simone could still maybe compete. We'll see what she decides to do. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese will definitely be on the USA team. That'll be a big deal. Yeah, when the Olympics come here to America, it's going to be a full-blown anywhere the Olympics goes, it's a big deal. But I have a feeling that one is going to be like something we've never seen before.
And then, kind of the last thing on the Olympics is Snoop Dogg. And I want to talk about this for a minute. He has became America's uncle, grandpa, whatever you want to call him, just cool dude. He's everywhere in the Olympics. He's going to be on The Voice. He's friends with Martha Stewart. He's everywhere right now. Now, obviously, he's kind of signed a deal with NBC to be on all these shows and everything. But I saw the greatest meme or tweet, whatever, that this guy wrote. My mom called and told me how much she enjoys watching Snoop go around the Olympics and how awesome he is. And I think you know where I'm going with this. And I had to remind her in 1997, she grounded me for buying his album.
I saw that same meme.
The same way. My mom would not let me get Doggy Style, the album. I mean, it was, I think I did end up getting it. But
my brother and I we were sitting in our courtyard hotel. We always share a room on these family vacations. So we had the Olympics on. I saw that meme pop up tonight. The exact same thing.
Great.
Like all the old folks, they're loving Snoop. He's a great guy, but back in 97 or 98 or whatever the heck it was, I also got grounded for my parents finding out that I had the CD.
You think of like him and Ice Cube. Ice Cube's, a cop on TV, and I think he wrote the song Cop Killer. I mean, it's just crazy, the difference, and just how people change and grow up. And, he had and you think about, he's been in jail and he's done things he probably regrets, and you grow up, you learn from him, and you become a better person. You think about, he hasn't, his friend Martha Stewart spent more time in jail than he did. Like, I promise you, he did way worse things to society than Martha Stewart ever did. She just made money off of, off doing things.
It was funny seeing them both up there.
Then he gets decked out, and seeing those two in the equestrian, and just the way he announces things, and if you ever watch when he does like Animal Planet stuff, or the best one I've seen is it's a gecko running through and then a bunch of snakes come out and he's talking about it, and just the way he does it.
I know the one you're talking about. That's really good too.
Yeah, I mean they're showing him now, talking with Noah Lyles' mom, and he's got Noah Lyles. I mean, obviously he's not buying tickets to all these things, but he still has to be at all of them. So he is getting there and doing that stuff. And yeah, so it's just fun to watch. But yeah, in 1997, everybody's parents were not liking Snoop Dogg, but in 2024, he's their best friend.
Those were CDs. You were either hiding them underneath your car seat, or if you had the CD booklets that we all did, when you bought CDs or you bought them.
Yep, you flipped it. You flipped it underneath.
You'd hide it behind another CD, which of course that would cause scratches. But that's how you had to do it, though, right?
And then I don't know if you had this, but so in my trunk, I had a 10-disc changer. You remember those in the trunk where so you could put it back there, but so you could listen to 10 CDs, but if you wanted to change any of those CDs, you had to get them in your trunk and change them out. So you'd put it in one of those, and you had to remember what number it was, and you could never play that one if your parents were in your car with you.
And of course, if you had subs, you had a 12 back there or two 12s.
Yep.
You had to be careful how loud you're playing those, and then turn them off when you're getting close to home. It's funny. The Snoop Dogg was hated back in the day. Now he's beloved by all the older folks.
And right now I can't hear it. It's on. I don't have, but Snoop's greatest hits. That's what they're talking about. And it's Snoop and Mike Tirico. Mike Tirico, 15 years ago, in 15 years, you and Snoop are hanging out at the Olympics, talking about table tennis and diving.
This Olympics, I think, is going to really, I think it's a springboard for the Olympics moving forward. The Olympics has always been popular. Like I told you a few weeks ago, it wasn't always my favorite thing, but I think it's drawing in a bunch of new fans, myself included. I saw it with my family members. My dad was even watching the Olympics a little bit when we went out for deep dish pizza. I think this is a springboard year for the Olympics. And I'm interested to see what the ratings are 4 years from now for the summer ones.
Yeah, and you always hear these huge numbers on, NBC pays billions and billions and billions of dollars. But then you watch, almost everybody I know from 7 to 10 o'clock turned on the Olympics. Now it's on. Now we all consume things differently now. So I can have it on here and I might be on my phone looking at Facebook or on Twitter or TikTok or playing a game on my phone or just doing things around the house, but it's on, and I think that's most everybody right now. And that's what's, we've changed on how we consume it so we can have more than one thing going on at once. And then I've even done it. I have 2 TVs in my living room where, I can watch it. I can turn on the NBC broadcast, then I can go to Peacock and pick out a sport I want to watch, an actual, hey, I want to watch fencing or whatever it is. It doesn't water polo instead of the general broadcast.
It's definitely different. You got to have, I'm almost thinking about buying a little small TV for my kitchen here, and we'll get into college football and stuff. But as you know, I've got my main TV and I've got my laptop, but I've been using both here since I've been home yesterday. I've got one channel on this, one channel on that, just kind of trying to watch everything I can.
Yeah, I've got, for one person now, when my kids come here, there's 3 of us, but for the most part, one person lives here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5 TVs, so I can pull them all. And then, I've got 2 computers, a couple iPads, I've phone. I've got way too much stuff, but yeah,
it's like all you need to do is start serving food and beer, and you can open up a restaurant.
Well, it's more TVs than a lot of places in Oskaloosa.
I hear you on that. No, that's Anyway, yeah, that's a separate subject. We'll save that one for another time.
Have you talked to anybody like actual that's been to the new P.O. Box restaurant here in town? I've not been there yet, and I really haven't talked to anybody that's been there. You know, you see your stuff on Facebook and or whatever, but I've not talked to anybody that's actually been there yet.
I haven't either. I hope it does good.
Yeah,
just because it's
they
another
spent a lot
option
of
in
money on
town.
that place.
No, I haven't talked to anybody that's been there yet. I hope they do good, but Oski is such a tough place to open a restaurant, bar, grill, whatever you want to call it. So, fingers crossed it succeeds. I really do hope they do. But knowing how Oski is and how people are in the town, that, well, I'll save it for another time. I could go on a rant, but I'm not going to tonight.
Yeah, and then Bridget Pub House, same thing. I have not been there, but I really have not been home. Went on vacation, you know, weekends, baseball stuff, and then, you know, I went up to Carroll, back for a day or two, working for my dad at most days where I'm not doing things, and then to Hinterland, you know, Friday to Monday, and then so I just haven't really been home. And then football's coming up in less than a month. I'll be, you know, about every other Saturday, or, you know, 2 or 3 Saturdays in a row, and then a couple off or Iowa State football games. So it's being around. Summertime is just hard for all bars and restaurants in general, and I think that it'd be a little bit hard to start right in the heart of August. There, State Fair starts tomorrow, so a lot of people are gone. But yeah, I hope all the places do well. The more options, the better.
It's my opinion. I travel around to a lot of states and I travel around to a lot of tiny little towns that have these tiny little bars and restaurants that have way less population than Oski does, that are way better supported because people actually get out of their house and go do things. But again, I'll save that rant for another time.
Yeah, Eddyville has 2 bar and grills right next to each other.
I know. Probably because people actually get up and move around and get out of their house.
Yeah. The problem is a lot of Oskaloosa people go down there because that's their only option. So, all right.
So that's a whole nother thing. But no, it's college football is getting ready to come. I know we're going to talk some college football stuff here. We're actually 17 days away from the first college football game.
Yes. Yep. The 24th is the day. 31st, Labor Day weekend, Iowa State plays. Most people play that weekend. The nice thing about that weekend is there is football from Thursday all the way to Monday. And it's just college. There'll be some NFL preseason games, but they don't start until that next week. Lots of football from then on. And I know you kind of college football memories. Now, as we were talking kind of before we hit record, you could do this a lot of different ways. You could do your best college football memories just overall. You could do your best college football memories of games that you've been to. You know, kind of what you were doing when you were watching these, or, you know, you could do it a bunch of different ways. Most of mine, I were there. Now, I've had a different experience than a lot of people, where I was part of Iowa State football program for 4 years when we won we went from 4-7 to 9-3. You know, went to 3 bowl games in that time, when Iowa State had never won a bowl game and only been to like 4 or 5 in their history. And then, you know, really since 1998, I have been to 90% of Iowa State home football games. I haven't been to all of them. I miss about 1 a year. And even before that, we would go. Here's a great. I think I've said this maybe on it. We would go to 1 game a year, probably at Iowa State, sometimes 2. We never had season tickets or anything, but we just would go. And I never saw Iowa State win a football game until I went to college. Now, some of that was because we always tried to we would go for the Nebraska game, or we'd go to watch the Iowa State game, or we'd watch, you know, Colorado, who was really good. You know, and Iowa State just didn't win very much. So I'm going to go sorry. my memories here going to kind of go. My number one memory of all time for college football is 2002, first week of the season. And this is my first game ever at any coaching responsibility. Student coach at Iowa State at Arrowhead Stadium against Florida State. Now, growing up, always, loved local football and everything, but Florida State was my team that could win team. Like North Carolina was my basketball team that could win it. Like North Carolina basketball and Florida State football, kind of my teams that could go win a national championship. And I still like them to this day. Against Bobby Bowden at Arrowhead Stadium, up in the press box, coaching. Now, obviously, we all know how that turned out. Was Seneca in? Was he out? Very close. Whatever. The memory didn't change. Coaching against Florida State, being part of Iowa State football for 4 years, seeing what that meant to Coach Dan McCarney and the team, that's my number one memory in college football.
I kind of figured that would be your number one as an outsider. It probably should be. That was a game that nobody saw coming. Florida State was a powerhouse, as you mentioned. Seneca Wallace, one of the most probably underrated or most surprising college quarterbacks in the history of the game. That game was an instant classic. Iowa State probably should have won the game. But of course, when you're playing a powerhouse, it's very tough to do. But yeah, that's a pretty special one. I would have paid good money to be on the sideline of that one just to experience it.
Yeah, and I wasn't on the side. I'd been on the sideline for 3 years. I'd held, that's back when most of the headsets were corded. So you plugged into and you had student managers and different people truly hold cords and unwind and wind as the coaches walk up and down. And I did that for 2 years for Coach McCarney. And that was awesome. I mean, things you hear and see, I mean, it's great. But that year I went up, I was, defensive coaching, helping, and, it was, Arrowhead Stadium, first game ever coaching. I mean, for a kid from Southwest Iowa, and I'm not a Chiefs fan, but that's the closest NFL team, and you're playing your kind of childhood team. Doesn't get any better than that. So that's my number one. And really kind of 1B is 2011, Iowa State versus Oklahoma State. They were number 2. Iowa State wins in a huge upset. I'm in the front row. I'm with my buddy Ronnie Howard from Ottumwa. It's a Thursday night or Friday night. It's weird. It's cold. And I tell him, if we win, I'm jumping over. I literally jumped over the whatever you just want to call it, onto the field and rushed it. It was kind of a somber day too, because the night before or day before is when the Oklahoma State women's coaches were killed in a plane crash. Brendan Whedon was a quarterback. Justin Blackman, I think was his name, was a stud receiver. Yep. Essentially, that game changed college football. That ended the BCS because what happened in that was LSU beat Alabama. Oklahoma State lost. They put Alabama back in. Alabama beat LSU in a rematch that probably shouldn't have happened. And they realized computers don't make it right. And I'm going to get to that in one of my other memories here coming up. So that's kind of a 1B. And then next on my list here is the best game I've ever watched.
I was living in Ames at that time. That game, okay. You said 2011.
Yep,
I think it was. Yep, I was living there when that was a big time upset. So I was there. We almost went to the game, but I just wanted to say, yeah, that's before you and I even knew each other. But yeah, definitely that was a big one there for Iowa State.
Yeah, that's the biggest upset in Iowa State history, probably. There's some others. 1992 beating number 7 Nebraska because of Iowa State was so far down. Oklahoma State was number 2, but yet Iowa State wasn't 2-7. They went to a bowl game. It wasn't, the end of the world. Then my next one is probably the best game I've ever watched and this was on TV for a national championship, 2005 USC and Texas. I still think that in our lifetime, that's the best college football game. So many stars.
Agreed.
USC is going for the three-peat, I believe, and Texas pulls off. I'm going to say an upset, but I don't think it really was an upset. It was two very, very, very good teams, and Texas made one more play. Vince Young made one more play than USC. That's all it was.
Yeah, that actually popped up on my YouTube 2 or 3 weeks ago. Football Life, that Rose Bowl game, and I watched it. And it'd been a few years since I've watched anything about that. That game was that is the best, given the stakes at hand.
The Rose Bowl,
and
it was at the Rose Bowl, which I still think is the granddaddy of them all. And I know a lot of people, bowl games are whatever, and the Rose Bowl. And I agree with this. The Rose Bowl had done a lot of things to not help college football because they won it on January 1st. They won it at 4:00 in the afternoon. So they're putting all these demands on it because they want their tradition and everything. But I get it. And the Rose Bowl is always going to mean something to me. In 2020, before the pandemic and everything, my grandma died during the Rose Bowl. We were watching it with her. We knew it was close. That's why we're all there. But it was during the Rose Bowl. I remember watching it. I don't even know who was playing it. It doesn't matter. But, kicks off at 4:00. Wasn't too long after that, she passed away. So the Rose Bowl is always going to mean a lot to me. And then just growing up, the night, you watch the Rose Bowl, and then the Orange Bowl was always after that. Sugar Bowl as well. I mean, those 3 games were always night. You turned on January 1st, 11 o'clock was the Outback Bowl and the Gator Bowl. And then it was just bowl game from the time you woke up to the time you went to bed on January 1st. And then kind of some others on my list, and most of these are 2002. You got to think this was the year I was coaching at Iowa State. So, and that year was special. Started off 6-1, ranked number 9 in the country, and finished 7-7. So you had the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. To then kind of next, Iowa State, Iowa. Iowa had a huge lead at halftime. I think the score was 24-7, and Iowa State came back 36-31 with the win. Brad Banks fumbled. Aaron Graving from Ames went to Iowa, got in a safety. One of the receivers fumbled as well on the sidelines. I can't remember his name right now. So that's a big one. Being at Kinnick and come back and seeing that, and then seeing what they did. The biggest thing about that game was seeing what Iowa did after that. Didn't lose another game till USC, Carson Palmer in the Orange Bowl. So that made that as well. Iowa State beat Nebraska 2002. First time in a long time. And then Iowa State versus Texas Tech that same year was the run. Seneca Wallace. Chris Kingsbury was the quarterback for Texas Tech. Mike Leach. They were on their way up. Just, a few years after that, they were playing. They were number 1 in the country. They weren't quite there yet. And then a couple other, kind of BCS national championship games. And again, you got to think time frame. 2001, Miami, Nebraska. Miami's so much better than everybody else. The big thing with that was Nebraska got killed by Colorado. They were number 1 team in the country, or number 2. Colorado beat them really bad in the last regular season game. Nebraska does not go to the Big 12 championship game. That's kind of the first time that happened where it was better for them to not go. Colorado goes and gets upset in the Big 12 championship game by somebody, and then Nebraska slips right back up to number 2 in the country.
I think was that Eli Roberson and Darren Sproles with K-State in the championship game? It was close to that time. I could be wrong. It might not be that exact year, but Eli Roberson and Darren Sproles.
Yeah, I mean, Not 100. I don't think it was. It had to be a team from the South.
Okay. Yeah, it might have been a different year. So never mind.
Very close to that time frame, though. And then, so that kind of was a weird BCS type thing. And then the next year, Ohio State upsets the Miami team that might have the most NFL talent in the history of college football until Joe Burrow and LSU's team. That Miami team had Jeremy Shockey and Willis McGahee, and just you name it, they had it. Hadn't lost in 50-some games, and excuse me there. But yeah, so those are just mine. And obviously, time frame was a lot of that. Early 2000s is mostly, but that's when I was in college and just out of college. Then obviously the 2011, just the big upset. So those are my kind of big time college football memories.
Those are all good. The one that really starts for me was Iowa versus Penn State in 2008. They're at Kinnick. Penn State was ranked third in the nation. Iowa ended up winning that game 24-23. And that was kind of the breaking out party for Tyler Sash. He had that interception on Darryl Clark. It was the green out. We had Sean Green. He was having an amazing season. Heisman Trophy worthy in a way. I forget what he finished exactly, but definitely a great season from a running back. Coldest game I've ever been to in my life in person.
Is that when they kicked the field goal to end it or not?
Yep.
And they went and slide. Who was that kicker? Do you remember?
I do, but now I don't.
He went and slid on his knees, right?
He did, yep. And it was a short kick, but it was a tough one because the wind was blowing. I mean, it was a brutally cold game. The coldest game I've ever been to. It was miserable to be there in the stands. And that's just, I was in college and it was miserable. If I was my age now, there's no way I'd even go to that game. I'd say, yeah, no thanks, not going. So I'm getting older.
I've been to a few cold games, I would say, and it's kind of weird. Like there's one game I didn't think we'd probably go. I asked Tyler, "Hey, do you want to go?" And he said yes. I was like, really? So we put on our coveralls, and we didn't tailgate or there's no tailgating happening. It was just go to the game and not freeze. And
yeah. You're young like that. It doesn't hurt you as bad, but you start getting older, and you know this. The cold, it's not as fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when you're young like that, but that was Sash's coming out party, and that Iowa little era's coming out party, in my opinion. And then the following year, Iowa played at Penn State. Penn State was ranked 5th. Iowa won that game 21-10. Claiborne had the big block punt in that one. Of course, defense, special teams play for Iowa. The cool part about that trip was
you went to that game, right?
Yep, me, Taylor, Al West, and a few others. We made a road trip. We were college students. Of course, we had no money to our name. So we went to the game, and then on the way there, we realized that we had a day in between, we'd go to New York. So we just decided randomly we're going to go do a day trip to New York City. So we're downtown New York, driving around 2 blocks from the Empire State Building, driving my grandma and grandpa's minivan. We have no clue what we're doing. So we get turned around and we find some random Walmart, park there, thankfully, take a shuttle bus downtown. We do the Empire State Building tour. We do a tour bus, all this stuff. And then we go back Saturday and watch the game. We win. Just an incredible experience. But of course, back in those days, we didn't have $100 to our name probably. But that's some of the college stuff you remember. You got to do it during the time. And just a couple others that come up, knowing, being friends with Tyler Sash and Steven Staggs, they played at Iowa. I remember one night, me, Taylor Howard, and Tony Moyaki went out on the downtown of Iowa City, and we end up back at, I forget where it was on campus. I think it was maybe a dinner hall or something, and there was a piano. So me, Taylor, and Moyaki walk in, and Tony Moyaki, who played tight end for the Chiefs for a few years before injuries overtook, sits down at this piano. And I grew up playing piano a little bit because my grandma taught me how to play She played for basically probably her entire life, but basically anybody knows when within about 5 or 10 seconds, you know if somebody can play an instrument. So Tony Moeaki sits down about 3 in the morning and starts playing piano in this dinner hall. And I'll tell you right now, Tony Moeaki knows how to play piano. He
That's
was
awesome.
really good. So he was taught at a young age. And then just there was a bunch of different nights, but knowing Sash and Stags, Taylor lived with them. They lived in a house for 1 year with Brian Balaga, who played right tackle for the Packers for 9 years. Tommy Donatel, he was a backup safety, defensive back there at Iowa. His dad was a defensive coordinator in the league for a long time, Ed Donatel. And then Colin Sleeper, who's probably one of the freakiest athletes that we've ever seen. It was just fun to hang out at those college parties way back in the day. That's something I'll never get to experience ever again. And not that I want to. Now that I'm getting older, I think back in my mind of those days where it's 1, 2, 3 in the morning and music's blaring, and all this stuff.
Night's
It was a
just
cool
starting.
experience, but yeah, I know that's the problem. But now that I'm getting older, it's like it was a cool experience, but and I'm happy to experience it. I will never experience anything like that ever again. But that was basically due to being friends of Tyler Sash and Steven Staggs. We kind of had access to some of these guys that played in the NFL, random nights in Iowa City, just hanging out.
Yeah, those. I didn't live with any football players or anything, but when you went out, you would see them out and you'd talk to them and you'd hang out with them, and just how people interact with them. Not me or not you, but just how they interact with them is and was just amazing to see. When Seneca Wallace would walk into Sips or wherever, it didn't matter. And he didn't do it a lot. People were different, or I mean, it didn't even matter if you were played a whole lot, if you were just a football player or, you're going to a class and you're wearing that leather jacket, how they treat you or how I'd go sit by one of them. I had a lot of classes with them and, cause I knew them and everything, and just, you could just kind of see everybody was watching them and how tough it would be for some of them. Some of them can handle it just fine, but some of them struggled with that because you couldn't do what you wanted to do and what you should, you didn't always do what you should do. And hey, that's a football player. So, that's what all football players are. And that's the tough part. And that still comes out to today. And it's even way worse today with phones and everything else like that.
This was 14, 16 years ago before everybody had a phone and videos and all that type of stuff. It'd be way worse nowadays. I can say this now because time has passed, but we had a friend of ours in our class. His name was Brian Donahue. Well, Iowa had a punter back in the day named Ryan Donahue. So we would go out to Sports Column or these other bars, and Brian, our friend, would show his IDs like, yeah, I'm the punter for Iowa. He'd play it off like that. So it was way different back then. But, nowadays with everybody having phones, these players have to be so careful. The privacy's gone. If you mess up for 5 seconds in front of someone's taping it, which is unfortunate in a lot of ways, but we got to experience a lot of cool stuff, college days that I'll never get to experience again. And not that I would want to, but a lot of good memories that came with just being friends with Tyler Sash and Steven Staggs and just that era of the Hawkeye football team.
Yeah. I mean, you were talking about 14 to 16 years ago. I know I was listening to one of the Iowa State podcasts. They had Sage Rosenfels, and he graduated in 2000. And they're talking next football season, that'll be 25 years ago. So I was in college 25 years ago. I mean, that's crazy. I mean,
it doesn't seem like that many years have gone by, does it?
No, but it's in some ways, no, but in some ways, yes. I mean, it's been, you kind of go back to thinking about different things you did, and it kind of becomes a little bit blurry just because it's been so long ago.
as you and I have talked about a dozen times on here, sometimes the days are slow and the years fly by, type of deal.
Right. Absolutely. Well, really, the next thing I want to talk about, and this will be pretty short, but just came out that Pitbull is now paid $6 million to Florida International University, and now it is Pitbull Stadium, whatever their stadium was called before. Now, Florida International is a lower level Division I team. They've been to bowl games. They're not a top team, but they're not the worst team in college football either. $6 million for their naming rights to their stadium. So it's Pitbull Stadium. Now, some things that Pitbull has to do. He has to write an entrance song. He has to show up he has to post on social media once a month. He has to show up to some fundraisers. There's different things he has to do for that $6 million. But then he also obviously gets the naming rights, but then he gets 10 days a year use of that stadium. So like he can have 10 concerts or whatever. Now that stadium holds about 20,000 people. So he's going to be able to, I would assume, now he's from Miami, Florida International's in Miami, so it works. It makes sense. So I think it's a great deal for both schools. Obviously, people are talking about Florida International right now. So that helps them. And having Pitbull, who's world famous, Mr. Worldwide, and then I think it's good for him because he can have 10 concerts and he can probably make $6 million in those 10 concerts. And now it costs him nothing because he doesn't have to rent out a stadium. He has a vodka, and that's going to be the preferred vodka in the stadium at all times. I mean, just different things. It's definitely a win-win for both programs, I think. But the bigger picture and bigger issue with this, it's not an issue, it's just the reality of it, is schools have to become creative now to get money. $22 million of budget. Florida International can pay their team $22 million as well. Well, they don't have it. They're not getting even $40 million like Iowa State, let alone $100 million like Iowa from the Big Ten. They don't get that kind of money. They might get $5 or $6 million from their TV deal, if that. I don't even know. So schools have to get creative. It's kind of been a little bit of a joke, but Drake, go get Drake to do something like this. Give Drake Stadium to Drake 10 nights a year. Who cares? Things like that. And then, but the biggest thing is schools have to be creative with money right now. Yes, they're getting a lot of money, but now all of a sudden they have to pay their athletes $20 million that they've never had to do before. So I think sports are going to get cut, because the other thing that happened is the number of scholarships have changed now. And this needs to probably be a discussion next week. But football is 105 scholarships now instead of 85. But that is also your team cap. So like right now, most football teams probably have 120 to 130 players, 85 scholarships. So you have round numbers, 40 walk-ons. Let's just go 125. Well, now you can have 20 more scholarship players, but you can only have 105 players on your team. Give and take. But 20 more scholarships and round numbers, let's just say it's $50,000 a year for a scholarship times 20. It's a lot of money. Plus you're paying $22 million. There's more scholarships in golf. There's more scholarships in wrestling. So I really think schools are going to have to decide what they're investing in. I think you have to invest in football. That's the one that pays all the bills. Iowa State, Iowa are going to invest in wrestling because that's one of their sports. Men's and women's basketball at Iowa and Iowa State, I think you have to invest in. But then after that, you have to decide what you're going to invest in, I believe. If you're a really good golf team, like Oklahoma State is one of the best golf programs, they're going to invest in golf. LSU is a baseball school. They're going to invest in baseball. I think Iowa baseball might be in trouble. Big time trouble, because they cannot afford to hang. And it's the reality of it. And I hate to say that. Rick Ellers from Eldon, talked to him several times. Excuse me. But you have to pick and choose where you're going to have your athletes. And Title IX is still an issue. So you're adding 20 scholarships to a men's sport. You have to add 20 scholarships to a women's sport.
Things are getting interesting, and it most of these college athletic programs, or not the athletic programs, but most of the programs actually lose money. You and I've talked about this many times. Colleges are going to have to start picking and choosing. Football obviously makes they make all the money, and then there's the occasional basketball teams that make some money as well. And there are going to be programs that are going to be cut over this. We'll see what happens. They're talking about football now hiring GMs.
Oh, I have to.
People to come in and manage the cap. And of course, there's no cap in college football, but manage the NIL money. Whatever your fund is, or whatever your money is, someone to bring in and just decide how to distribute it, because these college people don't know exactly what's going on, and nor should they, because they've never been put in this position. But you're going to have to bring these people in, and you're going to see a lot of former NFL GMs or whoever come in and be hired at these college programs to kind of manage the cap, do some of these other things to help these college programs out. So, yeah, you hear a lot of these stories even before NIL became popular, where college golf or college fencing or some of these other programs were losing a ton of money. And you're right. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these start getting cut. And it was probably a long time coming, actually. But football probably should have been privatized in a way, and it still might. But all the other sports kind of have to figure it out, and every university is going to have to be in their own situation where what sports do we keep, and then what sports do we let go?
Yeah, I mean, it truly is going to be a choice. Schools are going to have to decide, do you do the whole $22 million for your athletes? It's going to go to court, because with Title IX? Title IX is about opportunity, not equal results. But they're going to go, so, football, let's just use for numbers here. Football makes 85% of the money. Well, should they get 85% of that $22 million? Probably. But very few women's sports make money. There's some college basketball teams that do, like Connecticut women's basketball, I'm sure makes money, would be my guess. So they should get that, a percentage then. But does Drake's women's basketball team make any money? No. Actually, Drake probably doesn't. I don't know if any sport makes money there. Their men's basketball team might. And that's a very big might. So what does a team like Drake do? I have no idea.
You have to start cutting sports, I would assume. You're going to have to start cutting. And these are sports or programs that probably have lost money traditionally, or in history, I should say, not traditionally. History have lost money, and you're probably going to have to start cutting them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I don't know how else to do it. The other thing that I think, and I look back again, like we talked about just a couple minutes ago, 25 years ago when I was at Iowa State, the amount of people on the football program, like coaches, nutritionists, just staff, is tripled compared to when I was there. And that goes for most sports, and that goes for the athletic department as a whole. And then I think, the other thing that where some of this money could be is very much just inflated salaries. Dabo Sweeney makes $11 million a year. Could he make $8 million? Well, there's $3 million. Could, instead of your offensive coordinator getting $1.5 million, could he make $750,000? There's $500,000. Do that 3 times. Your basketball coach makes $7 million. Can he make $4 million? There's, instead of having 5 analysts at $100,000 a piece, maybe only have 2. There's a couple $100,000. There's money there. But I think what you're going to have to see is much more of a professional model. And I hate to say that because that's what I love about college sports is it's not professional, where it's almost more on the kids and the athletes to just do it themselves. They're getting paid. So you provide a weight room, but you don't have eight, lifting coaches. You don't have a head coach. You don't have 3 assistants. You don't have 4 GAs, that, at Iowa State, they're told what to do, when to do it, times to do it. The NFL has strength coaches and everything, but it's not near as structured and they're not near as nice. Locker rooms aren't as nice. Just the facility race is over. Kids don't care. They just want to know how much money they're going to get paid. Used to be who had the nicest locker room, who had the best, who had the barbershop, who had the slide going down, who had the coolest this. Now it's just, hey, I'm going to get $1 million a year from Alabama. I'm going to get $1.4 million from LSU. I'm going to LSU. They don't care, which I cannot blame the kid because obviously we're talking football here, but they all think they're going to the NFL, but the reality is most of them aren't, or at least they're not going to get that second contract that actually makes them a lot of money. The average NFL career is like 2.7 years. You can make a decent amount of, you're making $500 to $1 million, but if you only do that 2 years, that doesn't last you forever. But if you can make $500,000 for 4 years in college, so there's $2 million, and then you last 3 years in the NFL at, let's just say $1 million a year. So now all of a sudden you've got $5 million. That's a little different. Now, if you're smart with that $5 million, that doesn't get you to everywhere, but you don't ever have to struggle again. You got to go get a job and you got to be able to do stuff. But if you start out with $5 million when you're 27 years old, that's a hell of a start.
Yeah, you're starting way ahead of most people.
Yeah,
I
you're
think
a 1%er right away.
Yeah, you're a 1%er right away. America loves football, so football is going to be fun. We love our football. That's our sport in this country. Used to be baseball, it's not anymore. Basketball is going to be fun. I know everybody worries about the ratings of basketball. Basketball's not going anywhere, men's or women's. So we're football and a basketball country. I think where it comes in next to play is, are we going to be a baseball country or a soccer country for that third place type of tiebreaker? Hockey will probably always be 4th or 5th, but other countries too. There's other countries. Canada, hockey's number 1,
right?
And you look elsewhere, soccer is number 1, or cricket, or these different sports. But we are a football and a basketball country. That can't be denied by the ratings. Baseball does pretty good with attendance because they have 162 games a year or whatever it is. But yeah, football is always going to dominate. Basketball is always going to do pretty good. And then any college program, you're probably going to have to pick and choose. And it's going to be where the donors come from. If you are just a random program in the South, do you have a big donor for your golf program? Right. If you do, you'll probably be okay. If you don't, you're probably not going to make it.
Right. I mean, let's just use Tiger Woods. If Tiger Woods wants to fund the Stanford golf program, he can. Justin Thomas, sure. If he wants to fund the Alabama golf program, he can. Scotty Scheffler, and Jordan Spieth, if they wanted to get together and fund the Texas golf team, they can fund it. I mean, so, and I agree. I think that's what it's going to take is, Iowa State with Tyrese Halliburton getting $294 million or whatever he got, he can fund a lot of things if he wants to. I mean, they don't come out and say this, but I think between him and George Niang, I think that's how we've kept our players in basketball, and maybe they're helping with football too. Um, Brock Purdy isn't making any money yet. Brees Hall isn't making money yet, but after next year they will. Their rookie contract's up. Brees Hall's heard a thing today that he's one of the top fantasy football picks, first rounder. If he can stay healthy this year, he's going to be right there. And then Brock Purdy, right now, whoever's contract is up is becoming the richest quarterback in NFL history. Well, when his comes up at the end of the year, he's going to be that guy. As long as he has another good year. I mean, he's going to get $300 million. Well, if he wants to fund some Iowa State sports, he can. Now, they have to want to. But that's, and then obviously you have, Iowa State has the all boss, the suck ups that have always done it and will continue to do their part. Iowa has the Moon family, the world's largest truck stop people that fund a lot of things, and they have others. But yeah, you're going to have to tap into my $10 a month or $20 a month to certain things. It helps, but it doesn't really matter.
It buys dinner for someone.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're getting to. But, John Middlecoff brought this up. He said in college football, don't be surprised at some programs you don't expect. He was talking about Texas specifically, the state of Texas. He said, don't be surprised if like Baylor or Southern SMU has just a bunch of random like rich people that went there. And all of a sudden they just start donating a bunch of money and bringing in recruits. And all of a sudden Southern Methodist is in the college football playoff in 3 years.
Oh,
because they're getting a bunch of good recruits. And you would never expect that because that's not a program you expect to, you're looking at the Alabamas and the Ohio States and all that. But don't be surprised if there's a random program or two that comes out of nowhere in college football or other sports for that matter with all this NIL.
Well, SMU is a perfect example. They are going to the ACC and they are not taking money from the ACC for 10 years. They are funding it themselves because they have those donors. And you got to think, what is happening right now in college football is exactly what they got the death penalty for.
Yeah.
I mean, that is directly, they did this in the 1970s and 80s.
They had a show made about them, the 30 for 30, the Pony Express.
SMU knows how to do this. They've been doing it for 40 years, 50 years.
This could be their payback moment.
Yeah. So I 100% agree that there's teams. And then you look at like the Big East Conference in basketball where a Creighton doesn't have football to deal with. So they could pay $22 million to their basketball team. Villanova, Butler, those Big East schools, if they don't have to deal with football, St. John's, whatever, Providence. I mean, those are all good schools that do not have Division I football programs. Now, Villanova has 1AA programs, but Creighton doesn't even have football. So they don't have to deal with the scholarship issues, the money issue. They make all their money on basketball. And don't kid yourself, they got one rich dude in Omaha that has more money than he knows what to do with. And he funds the Husker football program and the Creighton basketball team. And I know that. And so if he wants to win, they've got essentially unlimited money. And it's just like Oregon.
They do.
It just kind of came out and said that Phil Knight wants to win and essentially has told him whatever it takes. And, Creighton basketball and Husker football has more money than Phil Knight.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, you could have a random tech guy that loves rowing, and donates to some college that he went to, and the rowing department has a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So you're going to see these different colleges. I mean, I think the top 10 in college football, just speaking of football, will probably remain the same. It's probably going to remain Ohio State and the normal guys that we're always used to seeing. But don't be surprised if, like I said, Baylor and SMU just kind of pop up and they're good for 10 years because they have 5 or 10 super rich dudes that went there and support the program and got the oil money type of deal. If we're speaking specifically on football.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's all about money and 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 great for the kids. And my son's not going to be getting any of that. But if I had a son that was, playing Division I football or basketball that could make, that NIL was an issue, like a real thing, you would have to have those discussions with coaches and teams and your financial people. I mean, it's an issue. And because one tweak of the knee or, if you're a pitcher, one shoulder, elbow tear, and it's over. And, if you got $1 million from LSU as a freshman, and then all of a sudden, let's just say it's not even on a football field, you get in a car wreck and can't play football anymore. Well, at least you had that $1 million that you didn't have before. That's not going to get you through your whole life, but it's way better than having nothing.
Yeah, most people kill for something like that.
Right.
I know we didn't have this written down, but it was something I was looking at earlier this afternoon, was the Nebraska football schedule. Nebraska's getting a lot of love. And I wanted to go down this avenue before we end, if that's okay with you.
Yep. And then we probably need to end. It's been long, but that's okay. Every once in a while we can go long here.
This is going to be one of our long ones.
Yep. Nebraska football. And I do not know it off the top of my head, but I do know that it's very easy to start. Like they play Ohio State game 6, 7, and there's a real opportunity. Game 8. Mm-hmm. I think I've heard that if they play well, there's a real chance when they get on that plane to head to Columbus, they could have 0 losses or 1 loss.
Yep.
So yeah, let's run it down.
So let's run it down. Yeah, there's a very good chance if you look at their schedule on paper, they start 6-1 or 7-0 if they live up to the hype for the first time in a long time. We'll see if that happens. They have a coach who's proven. I looked at their schedule. Their second game of the year is going to be the big one. Colorado comes to town. It's going to be a bunch of hype. I don't think College Game Day will be there. I think College Game Day will probably be in Michigan. I think Texas plays there.
Texas, Michigan.
But yep. Big new kick. Regardless, there's going to be a bunch of hype over that game. If they win that game, they'll be 2-0 on paper. But I did look at their schedule and I saw a trap game in between right after that. Do you want to guess who it is?
Oh, it's Northern Iowa, because Northern Iowa does not play Iowa State this year, and so they're going to Nebraska.
So good luck to Nebraska, because I've always told you the one team I hate seeing on Iowa's schedule is UNI, because it's a lot of kids that got told you're not quite good enough to come to Iowa or Iowa State. And the same could be said for Nebraska. A bunch of these, not the entire roster, but there's a bunch of kids that get told, Western Iowa, you're not quite good enough to come to Nebraska, and they go to UNI. This is going to be their Super Bowl. So, but if Nebraska starts out 2-0, that UNI game, I think, is a trap one. I expect them to win it, of course, but as someone that has grown up playing against or watching teams play against UNI, that's a trap game right there.
There is one caveat to that. I'm pretty sure if you would pull up maybe on a different, or maybe I can pull it up here, UNI might go to Hawaii before that. And so that travel back and forth.
That's a good point.
Could be an issue. And so they're kind of doing their bowl game. I mean, it's essentially like a bowl game for them. Nope. Okay. So they go to Hawaii right after. So they play Valpo first week. And then St. Thomas in Minnesota, then Nebraska, then they go to Hawaii. So I had the schedule backwards. So, they go to Hawaii after Nebraska, so it's out. So that's fine. So that would make that game harder for Nebraska. I would agree.
That's a trap game for Nebraska, in my opinion, because I've seen UNI. That's a Super Bowl game for all those kids that got told they weren't good enough to go to big college
Division One.
programs around the
Yep.
Midwest. Yep. So, but if you look at, and I'll believe it when I see it, but if you look at Nebraska's schedule on paper, there is a realistic chance they start 7-0 or 6-1. They play Illinois, Rutgers, Purdue, a lot of nobodies in the grand scheme of things. So if they can beat Colorado week 2, that I'll believe it when I see it type of deal. But Nebraska, I see why people are believing them, basically just based on the schedule.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with Matt Rule. Matt Rule has proven to do it at Temple and at Baylor. And, he just kind of went into a mess there at Carolina. And I think it's better off not working for that. You had that conversation about that owner last week, and just better to be out of there anyway.
Yeah, get out of that mess with the owners. But no, Nebraska is an interesting team. I'm not rooting for them. I know whether you're a Big Ten, a Hawkeye, or a Big 12, Iowa State, you're probably not rooting for them either. But
No, that's
there
kind
is
of a one solidarity. We all hate Nebraska.
Yeah, we all hate Nebraska, but there is a realistic chance though that they could start pretty good this year if you look at the schedule on paper. I think the if they can get to 2-0, I do see Northern Iowa as that game they're not thinking about, and us that are Iowa or Iowa State fans, we know all too well. Don't overlook UNI.
Yeah. I mean, they've beaten Iowa State plenty. Brock Purdy had to fall on a fumble to save the game. Iowa State ended up winning that, but Iowa had to block 2 punts or 2 kicks to win a game. So yeah, they can do it now. I will say this: the last few years, UNI has not been as good. Just overall, they haven't. They've still given Iowa State some trouble certain times, but they have not had the record and gone to the playoffs and won in the playoffs like they had the previous 5-6 years before that.
No, and I fully expect Nebraska to win the game, but I could see that with all the hoopla that's going to come versus Colorado at Nebraska game day, maybe FS1 or a big noon kickoff. There's going to be a lot of media attention. If Nebraska wins that game, I could see that being a letdown one. I would fully expect Nebraska to win the game, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the third quarter, if it's like Nebraska 17, UNI 13. And we've got a ball game on our hands. Because UNI, all those players are going to want to. That's their Super Bowl.
Yeah, they're going to have 2 games under the belt. Should be 2-0, I believe. So they should be feeling good about. They don't have Iowa State first game of the year. They've got 2 games under their belt to kind of figure themselves out. Every team, you start somebody at a certain spot game 1. By game 4 or 5, you got a new guy in there because that guy performed better. Maybe he didn't practice great, or maybe he got a little bit tweaked and hurt in training camp, but 3 weeks later he's healthy. A lot of things happen. And I 100% agree that Nebraska definitely looks to be better on paper, and they have the best quarterback in the country coming to play for them. That doesn't hurt. Now he's a freshman, but you don't become the best quarterback in the country by ratings by being really, really bad.
No. And he's dressing like Mahomes. He's doing all that type of stuff.
He looks just like Mahomes. That's kind of
funny. He did.
That. Yeah. So
he'll get a bunch of hate for it, but if he wins football games, no one will care.
Nope. We're an hour and 45 into this, so we've definitely gone way over our time. But again, thanks for listening. If you've listened to this whole episode, probably next week we need to get into straight up predictions. Predict Iowa State. Just go up and down. Win, loss it. And then our projections for the playoff and conference champs and stuff. So kind of predictions next week. So make sure you tune in next week as well. But again, thanks for tuning in. Rate, review, subscribe to whatever podcast player you listen to. If you really don't have one, I suggest use Spotify. One, you can see a video of us on Spotify. It's kind of our recording does do video as well, and on Spotify it does upload the video as well. So if you want to see our ugly mugs, you can do that. All right. Again, thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Trev. Good to be back. And we are weeks away from football, actually real football that matters. We've actually had a football game. The Hall of Fame game did happen, but real football's getting closer and closer. So again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.